Here is a late 80s or early 90s JVC CA-E23L compact disc cassette deck receiver, as JVC calls it, or in other words, an all-in-one stereo system. This is what you'd call cheap and cheerful. It is very basic, you can certainly tell by the 2-digit display of the CD player, but it does sound quite good, and rather amazingly, the CD player does work. No problems at all, not even when playing CDRs. There are really only two problems that I could find so far. The volume control is very scratchy and keeps losing contact. And the cassette deck, the B side, won't turn the take-up reel, as you can see. Don't worry for this cassette, I already pulled it out of this deck and the tape was all wrapped around the capstan. Yeah, no take-up reel. Interestingly, the A side works fine, as you can see. Here is the inside of the system, and as we move in a bit closer, I think first of all this is going to take a trip to the air compressor. It's quite incredible that the CD player still works, considering how dusty it is. The system has been cleaned. Let's take another look around. The date codes indicate that the system was made in 1990. The amplifier is based on an STK 4122 Mark II, rated 15 watts per channel and 0.4% total harmonic distortion. Nothing special, but I do think these STK chips sound a lot better than people always try to make you believe. There is a speaker protection circuit with a relay. Looking down here, we have another look at the CD drive. Power transformer should be adequate for a 15 watts per channel system. There is the cassette mechanism, and unfortunately we will have to take a much closer look at that than this, because as you may or may not be able to tell, the belts are fine. The problem is more complex than that. And up here is the volume control, and this is where we are going to start the repairs. I think the easiest way to do this is to remove the volume control. So I'm going to take off the nut that's holding the whole assembly in through the front panel. Like so. Ooh, those wires are pretty stiff. But now we have perfect access to the volume control. So I can put in some of the Tuner 600 contact cleaner that I always use. Let's see. Put in some for both channels. And yeah, put it in until it drips out. The fact that it's now dripping on my hands is not ideal. It really dries out the skin. But I've put on the knob so that I can now work the potentiometer a bit. Maybe put in some more cleaner. Now, in case you wonder, my Tuner 600 can for some reason has lost all of its pressure, so The contact cleaner is now only dribbling out slowly. But that should be it. That should be the volume control cleaned up. As you can see, this is a motorized potentiometer because the system did originally come with a remote control, which I unfortunately don't have. That should be enough, so I'm going to put this back together. Here is the mechanism taken out. This was easy. All the electrical connections are socketed, and there are only 5 screws holding this in. And they are easy to find because they are blue. Well done, JVC. I'm not used to these all-in-one stereo systems being this service-friendly. And also repairing this mechanism should hopefully be a lot easier than I expected. I thought I'd have to disassemble the mechanism from the back. Yeah, dual cassette deck, only one motor. It's not great. But it turns out it's all accessible from the front. This is a 4K video, and those watching in 4K may have already spotted the problem. There is an idler wheel right here, and that's missing over here. Well, the wheel is there, but the rubber tire is missing. I only found this one fragment of it in the stereo. But the idler tire over here is about to fail as well. This is very badly cracked. So the idler tires on both sides of the mechanism need to be replaced. Which brings up the question of where do you get replacement idler tires? I have been asked this before, and unfortunately I don't really have a good answer either. So in this mechanism, I'm going to try out something new, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to try this for quite a while. I bought a few of these assortments of rubber O-rings for plumbing, and I'm going to see if I can fit some of those rubber O-rings into here in place of the idler tires. So let's start disassembling this. Thankfully, with this being a dual cassette deck, I always have one mechanism as a reference, so I don't have to remember all the details. I can just start taking this apart. So I think I'm going to start by taking out that spring and then this screw. If this goes as I have planned, yes, I can pull this out. Oh wow, well this is too easy. Okay, so here is the arm with the idler wheel on it. This is round. This actually I think this is just a rubber O-ring to begin with. It's not even anything special. Here is a much closer look. This is indeed just a round rubber O-ring that is sitting on this wheel. And yeah, you can see how badly cracked this is. I have found 2 O-rings that could work. So let's take off this original idler tire, which is not even a proper idler tire. And let's first try the bigger one. I'm not sure if this... no, this this is too big. Okay, let's try the smaller size. Oh, yes. Wow. That is a perfect replacement. I think that pretty much looks like the original. Excellent. Okay. Now, before putting this back together, I will have to clean this O-ring. Since these were made for plumbing, they are covered in something like silicone oil. So I'll have to clean this with some isopropyl alcohol. So let's repair this mechanism. here is the arm. Here is the new idler tire, aka the rubber O-ring. And this is actually a different one. I found that in the other set of O-rings I have, there was one variety that fit even better. This is a perfect replacement. So that goes back into here. And okay, there is... Yeah, good thing I have the other side for reference. That goes under, this goes over. Let's get the screw, like so. Okay, yep, it's still free to move. Let's see. Is this going to work? Let's hope it does. Oh, yeah, it's not going to work because I forgot to hook the spring back into place. Now the spring is back. Let's try again. Is this going to work? Oh, it sure looks like it. Sure looks like it. Yes, I think... Actually, I'm turning it the wrong way around. Yeah, that is going to work. Let's see. Well, not sure how much friction this should be able to transmit, but anyway, we'll put this in and then we'll have to see if it works once the whole thing is back together. In theory, it seems to work. Actually, let's get this spring out first. And then comes the screw. Okay. Get that out. Okay, that's the other arm. And the other new idler tire. Put that back in place. Like so. Wow. This is too easy. This is too easy. I bet you something's going to go wrong. Okay, that's back in place. Let's not forget the spring this time. Okay, and let's engage this side. And, yep, it works, as you can see. And now comes the moment of truth. Is this going to work? Let's put in a cassette. Now fast forward and rewind are gear driven, so those of course still work. And what has happened to the motor? This is awfully loud. This wasn't that loud before. I'll have to see what happened there. But let's press play. Oh, look at that. It is working. Let's check the other mechanism and then I'll have to find out what this noise is. Oh dear. No more fast forward. No more rewind. Okay. The playback does work, as you can see, so something must have gone wrong. Thankfully, no big problem. Working with the mechanism lying on its back has pushed in this wheel, and I can just pull it back out, like so, and that should fix the problem. Ah, there we go. Fast forward works, and it's all nice and silent. And rewind works as well. And there is playback, and the take-up reel turns. Let's take out the cassette and engage playback, give you a better look. Let's feel. Oh yes. Yep, that is plenty of torque. That's perfectly fine. Let's test the other deck as well. Let's see. Oh yes. Yep, that is plenty of torque. So I would say the idler wheel replacement was a total success. And unfortunately, I just found another problem. If I engage playback, that works fine, but if I now engage the pause, yeah, the take-up reel keeps on turning when it's supposed to stop. And that has made me realize something. Here is the mechanism taken back out, and if we move in a bit closer, this is what the problem is. Engage play, and you can see the idler wheel makes contact with this wheel and this wheel. Now, if I press pause, as you can see, that disengages the idler wheel, except when the pause latches, it moves back up again a little bit, and the idler wheel makes contact once again. So basically, this arm would have to move up a little bit further to break the contact between the surfaces. Now, this whole thing has made me realize something else. The little tiny section of the original idler tire that I found in the stereo system is square. That is a normal idler tire. So clearly, someone has been in here before, and they had exactly the same idea as I had. Just replace the idler wheel with a rubber O-ring for plumbing. No wonder I found a perfect replacement for this thing, because this was a rubber O-ring for plumbing all along. So this is going to require some further experiments, and I'm not going to bore you with those. Long story short, I found some different size O-rings. They're about 1 millimeter smaller than the ones I had in there before, and now there is still plenty of torque, but the pause works as it should. I shall demonstrate with a cassette. Playback and pause. The system has no line output, so I now have the leader cassette checker connected to the headphone output. The speed was too fast, so I adjusted that. So this is playback on the B side. And let me change over the cassette and demonstrate. This is playback on the A side. The results are pretty close, so that's not bad. Let's switch over to Wow and Flutter, and yeah, this is not impressive. We're at the 0.6% scale for this one, and the Wow and Flutter is hovering around 0.2% and sometimes peaks to 0.4% Wow and Flutter, measured according to DIN. Let's try the other deck. Wait for it to stabilize, and yeah, that is pretty much the same result. It's not great, but then again, this is a dual cassette deck running off one single motor. So that's not going to be very good. It turns out there also was a problem with the tuner. Now, I am by no means an expert on tuners, so my description of the problem won't be great, but let me try. Basically, all the frequencies were shifted. So if you had, for example, a station broadcasting on 92.1 megahertz, if you set this tuner to 92.1 megahertz, you'd get bad reception. If you then detuned the tuner to, say, 92.2 megahertz, suddenly it would lock in on the station. You'd get the tuned indicator and stereo reception. Also, the automatic search was not working. It would never find anything. It would just run endlessly. The way I fixed this, and I know quite a few people won't like to hear this, was by trial and error. Although this time there was not even any error. If you look at the circuit board of the tuner, you can see there are quite a few adjustments on here, but you can narrow it down. These adjustments are labeled AM on the board. This adjustment appears to be for the stereo demodulator, so you only have these 4 adjustments left over. And the first one that I tried turning with this fancy, supposedly Japanese-made ceramic aligner tool I got off AliExpress, this turned out to be the right one. I tweaked it just a little bit, and now the frequencies are correct, and the automatic search works as it should.
Heb ik die Plattensammlung von uns Pastor durchkeken.
And here is the stereo system put back together and set up with its original speakers. These are 50 watts. Doesn't really make any sense considering the system only puts out 15 watts. But to end this video, I have some music that I recorded from CD onto cassette. This is by no means perfect. You don't need to point that out, but I'd say, all things considered, this is quite acceptable. Thank you for watching.